Welcome to another edition of the Insider Mailbag, brought to you by Red Raider Outfitter, the fans' favorite since 1975. I'm Jared Johnson, and we have some really good questions, as usual, this week from inside the Red Raiders subscribers, so I'm going to dive right into them. TTU Dad 2012 says, since we know the new wide receiver coach is Juice Johnson, can you go into details on his background and how our receiver group will get better? How is the receiving group handling the news now? Well, in terms of the last question, some of the people at Tech, they watch these videos, they monitor our board. I'm not allowed to directly contact players without, it being set up between Texas Tech. So even if I did do that, I could not admit it here in this space. But what we've seen on social media, a lot of the players are excited. It seems like this has been universally hailed as a great hire. Juice Johnson was at Baylor the last 3 years, coaching running backs. The running backs at Baylor had a lot of success. Joey McGuire, Coach McGuire, and some of the guys on staff, of course, are very familiar with having worked with Juice, previously at Baylor. He also was at Kansas, did a good job recruiting some guys at Kansas, which, especially when he was there, was not an easy thing to do. He had a stint at A&M. I think he was a grad assistant there. In terms of, and at Kansas, he coached wide receivers for a year. He was an all-conference player at Houston as a receiver, so he knows the receiver position. Just like a decade ago, he was an all-conference receiver at Houston. I think that's where he started his college coaching career as well. So he's known as a high-level recruiter. You've seen things about his high energy level, all that. The man knows how to play receiver. He's coached receivers. He's coached in the Big 12. He's a high-level recruiter, home run hire. McGuire's familiar with him, so there shouldn't be a big surprise with him. I don't see where this is bad. Now, will he make the receivers better? I don't know. Emmett Jones, who left for Oklahoma, of course, he's a good coach. I'm not going to trash him just because he left. That's not how I work, how I operate. I like Coach Jones. I think he's a good coach, good recruiter. I always stated I thought, his recruiting prowess or the reaction to him leaving the first time may have been overblown. Though he's a very good recruiter, a good coach, and from my experience, a very good man, somebody I like a lot. So I definitely don't think this is a step down, but I want to wait and see how the receivers perform under Coach Johnson, who his full title is actually assistant head coach, passing game coordinator, and outside receivers coach. So, this is still Kitley's offense. He's actually going to coordinate a lot of the offense. But they're going to work together, and I think this is a terrific hire. It's just the bottom line. Denver Red Raider says, glad you're back, JJ. Hope the trip was a good one. It was. He says, just for grins, do you think any other team in the Big 12 could have played better than TCU? Also, who else in the SEC could have donkey stomped the mighty Frogs? He says his guess is several the way TCU played. Well, to address your last point, that was the worst I saw TCU play. They were so out of place on defense in so many areas. I think the misdirection that Georgia used early, really, TCU never recovered from that. I think, the stage got really big for TCU, which it happens, other SEC teams, the way TCU played that night on the national championship game, I do think a lot of teams, period. I think a lot of Big 12 teams would have beaten them, the Tech team that played in the Texas Bowl would have beaten the TCU team that played in the national championship game. Now, would it have beaten the TCU game that played in the semifinal? I don't know. They played really well. So, on any given Sunday or Saturday, or in this case Monday, that's the thing about football that's so exciting, is you just never know what team's going to show up. And that's what coaches strive to do, is get that consistency. And TCU was pretty consistent for most of the season until the national championship game. And then they ran into a team that they just weren't going to, they had to get an early lead and play a certain way to win that game anyway. And they were 2 touchdown underdogs for a reason. And that's not what happened. So, I think Tennessee would have whipped them. Good or bad. Alabama, of course. there are several other SEC schools that and like I said, I mean, I think Kansas State on a good day, and then of course they beat them in the Big 12 championship. They would have beaten them on that national championship game. So, I mean, yeah, it had to be disappointing for the TCU fan base and program, but they had a great season. They got to the national championship game, but it was a bad night to lay an egg. But that's what they did against, obviously the best team in the country. Laxer Larry asked, he said, basketball is struggling hard. Boy, they are. He said, let's say we see some key players jump ship after the season. What do we make of Coach Mark Adams then? To be honest, he said he's not impressed with how he's managed and coached this season. He said, were Kevin McCullough and Terrence Shannon bolting a sign of things to come? I mean, it definitely can be argued that. I mean, it was alarming to see those guys. I mean, Shannon announced he was transferring, or at least it leaked that he was transferring, before they got home from San Francisco, from losing in the Sweet 16. And then McCullough, transferred to, one of your chief in-conference rivals in terms of basketball. So, yeah, that was alarming. And, no, Coach, I mean, I don't see how you could argue that Adams has done a good job this year. I mean, you can't. They haven't. Tech has struggled. They're 0-4 in Big 12. They just got blown out by 30, against Iowa State. More than that, I mean, the offense hasn't improved at all. The defense has regressed. They don't have the length on the perimeter that they did last year, and part of that is Shannon and McCullough leaving, but not just them. They didn't re-recruit those type of players, and but also more than that, you don't see the cohesion on defense for this no middle, iron donut, as Maya Joe calls it, or force some sideline defense. You just don't see it. The rotations aren't there. The cohesion in there. One of the big parts of coaching college basketball nowadays is getting a team to come together. A lot of new faces as you're constantly resetting the roster, reloading the roster, and I mean all of that. Coach Adams, who is the main guy, he's the guy. He's the head coach, leader of the program. I mean, you have to say he has failed miserably so far this season. Season's not over, but so far. If they go on, if it continues like this, then yeah, I mean, it's going to be alarming. It is alarming. I think a lot of people, like I said, another question in and around the program are worried about the direction of the program, and if some of these young guys, let's say, leave after this year, so not only do you lose the veterans who you brought in, for this season, but you lose a lot of the young talent you recruited, which was a pretty good class before. It will be a very scary. I think there'll be a lot of concern. The concern will grow, I guess is the best way to say. So I have no idea if that's going to happen. I think we have to see how the rest of the season plays out, how the players respond to Coach Adams, how the coaching staff works together. But even if they had success this year, I think there's going to be major changes, and it'll be really interesting. It'll be wild after the season's over. Reporting on and watching all the changes that are likely to take place within the basketball program after this season. Teeny Pepper says, I just bet my idiot TCU brother that Tech would win 10 playoff games in the next decade. He says, now I'm thinking I may have undersold how good this team is going to be. He asked for my thoughts. Yeah, my message I've been telling Texas Tech fans, especially when I talk in person with them, and they ask me about, McGuire and football, is it the real deal? Yeah, buckle up. My preseason projection or prediction for wins is going to be higher than it's been in the decade since I've been here covering Texas Tech. And I'm in the same way just for next season. I'm thinking 8-9 regular season wins, and wondering if I'm valuing or underestimating this team, because there's a lot of pieces that I really like. This coaching staff I really like. But I think, and you're talking about playoff games because it's going to be 12 team playoffs over a decade. If McGuire stays, so much could change. But I think you might be right. You might be undervaluing. I think Tech football is going to be in that good a position. 10 playoff wins is a lot, though. Just looking at it right now. But projecting for the future. This 2023 class was top 25. Brought in some good transfers. And then the 2024 class, like I said before, they're already 6th in the country right now. So there's a good chance they're going to sign the best recruiting class, at least in modern Texas Tech, or recent, the last, this century, we'll say, history. It may be the best in the program's history, period, or at least maybe since the 70s or something like that. So they're poised and they're built, just like I broke down how things were falling down under Kingsbury. I mean, I'm trying to methodically show people that this thing's being built for a big time run now into the future, with the coaching staff, the way McGuire recruits, the way the whole staff recruits, the foundation they built of success, winning 8 games and having one of the best seasons in the last decade, just last year. I mean, this thing is being built to be a monster, and I think you might be onto something. I think Tech's going to win a lot of football games. Now, will they win a championship? All that, will they get? And when they win a ton of playoff games, like you asked, it depends. Will they get one of those quarterbacks who just almost transcends the sport and elevates them to another level? If they do that, then yeah, I think you've underestimated. If not, then I still think they're going to have a lot of success and win some playoff games over the next decade. I think, again, just everyone buckle up. They're building something that's going to be really special, and man, I can't wait. I'm so excited to cover it, to watch it all unfold, and how much joy it's going to bring Raiderland. So with that, great round of questions from subscribers as always. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and until next time.